All right, and we're live.
Are we alive? Are we really ever alive?
Well, I mean, we're kind of
we're in the Matrix here.
What if that was a documentary and we just don't know?
Can this thing hear me right now?
Yeah, Eddie, it hears
so.
you.
Okay.
So tell us about where we can be found at, Chad.
Oh, well, we can be found at Anchor. Crap, my dashboard just went. Anyway, it's yeah, I should have known as soon as I clicked on it, it'd go. But it's anchor.fm/the podcast and can be found on Spotify under the PODCUSS. Spotify has it, Stitcher has it, Google Podcast has it, and also it's on Steven's YouTube, which is probably where most of it's at.
Yeah, you could get to my YouTube. Just Google like Steveburto or YouTube/user/Steveburto. And I keep it on a playlist on the front page in there somewhere. But this is the Resident Evil podcast. Even though we've done like 4 of them already, there's a bunch of big news dropping out as far as Resident Evil. Now we'll start with Resident Evil 8. There's been several leaks. Like what they'll do is they'll have like an ambassador program where they'll bring in people and they sign an NDA and they get a play test of the game. And so we know a pretty good bit about Resident Evil 8. I would suspect that they would have announced it at the PlayStation E3 event or whatever it is. They might still have a PlayStation Direct where they officially show Resident Evil 8. I'm thinking that it's going to be like in January or February. They like to put those games out in that kind of window after Christmas, but before a lot of other big games come in. So let's just go over what one of these guys comes through. He said he says the game's done. It's going to be breaking this month, which means I think it'll be revealed like pretty soon. I'm still thinking that, whatever PlayStation does for their E3, but 2021. But it wasn't actually started off at Resident Evil 8. They had 2 projects going on, 2 Resident Evil games. And then, but most of the development, this one was Revelations 3. So, which makes me immediately think is this shit going to have a raid mode? I mean, I would definitely want a raid mode in this.
That would be awesome.
Yeah.
I wonder if it's going to be like a, mercenaries thing like the original Resident Evil 4.
I'm not. We'll get to that when we talk about the remake for 4. I'm not thinking, and sad is, I think they're getting away from the mercenaries because the last time they did it was 6. And so I would definitely, whatever they've having going on with Project Resistance isn't what most Resident Evil players want to play, though. I'll tell you that. So let me go back through this some more. Capcom didn't want a huge gap between 7 and 8 because 7's the damn soft reboot. And they're going to do all of these remakes in the middle. Of what's going to happen is 7 needs an actual sequel soon. So I think that's why they took this, what was going to be a side game, and now they're going to call it Resident Evil 8. It seems to be liked by the testers, but they're calling it The Village, and it's going to have like a village motif with like castles, and it's going to have like werewolves in it. And Ethan, the main protagonist from 7, is going to be in it. Now, we need to talk about that right now because I didn't even remember the guy's name until they started doing Resident Evil 8 leaks. He was like a non-character. How much did you actually play, Chad?
Of 7?
Yeah.
I literally played like just a few minutes of it. It was one of those, I downloaded it, installed it, and then I finally ended up playing like a few minutes of it just to kind of, and then I never came back to it. And it's not that I was like, oh, I don't like this version of Resident Evil. Like, it wasn't like, this isn't my Resident Evil. It was more of like, it might have been just me at the time of being like, well, I'm not interested in this. I like the characters of Resident Evil, and since it was all like, these are totally different people and a totally different story and it was kind of like, it just didn't have that feel to it. I could have gotten over the first person part of it. Like, that didn't bother me, but it just, I don't know. There was something in there that grabbed me to make me want to finish it like the other 6.
Well, when
that, I didn't get far.
Yeah, Resident Evil 4 is essentially a soft reboot as well, but it had Leon in it. And so hardly anything else besides mentioning Wesker and a little bit of Ada has actually to do with Umbrella or whatever. They had Leon in it to help you push forward and introduce all of these new things. But we'll see. Now, Chris is in this one, but as Eddie has probably seen, that does not look like Chris at all.
It'd be probably some kind of alternate universe thing.
You're saying this is an alternate universe?
It was like when I saw the picture, I was like, "Is that what?" Is like I mean, clearly it's a redesign, and it's like I guess that's where we're going now. Like I mean, it was really like it was almost like they threw it on there like this is downloadable content. Oh, and this guy is Chris, because you wouldn't know it if they didn't tell you.
Now, Eddie, you told me that this game that isn't Resident Evil. Can you like articulate that? Why do you feel it's not?
Well, first off, I've seen the demo plays. I think I played with at your place once, and it just didn't feel right to me.
Me and you watched it on. I think it might have been 2016. We watched it revealed live, the whole trailer.
Yeah, the trailer looked good and everything, but the actual gameplay. No.
Me and you looked at each other, and it's like it says Resident Evil did. Until that actually said Resident Evil, we didn't even know what the fuck what it was. I mean, you had the old Aunt Rose song or whatever it is, and we're like, is that what Resident Evil is?
Go tell Aunt Rhodey. Go tell Aunt Rhodey. My niece actually did that song at a concert thing, like a couple of years back, I think. She had like some kind of Christmas concert thing. That was one of the songs. Anyway, the game itself. See, I played the demo and that's about it. I don't really like the actual game. No, the first person thing, that's. I have not played Resident Evil Survivor. That was probably the only. Let's see. No.
I think there was two of them. I don't remember them.
No, there was Survivor, and then there was like Survivor Code Veronica, but that was like totally different. It was something else.
Those were mainly shooters, though, right? Like Duck Hunt.
The first one was. It was like a first-person, like House of the Dead. I don't know about the Code Veronica one. I think it was like something totally different. Like you went into a room and it was timed, and if time runs out, Nemesis chases you. But,
and that's in addition. There was the two more in Wii. The Dark Chronicles? Was it Dark Chronicles?
Yeah,
I think so.
I played the second one. Not all the way through, but I played it because it picked up. It had a lot of like inside things of like kind of sort of like retwist on Resident Evil 2, Resident Evil 4 stuff, like Krauser, like backstory things.
Yeah, Krauser's the easiest boss in the game.
But to me, playing through 7, I can tell you from a gameplay perspective, it's definitely Resident Evil. It's not a shooty one because you have to worry about your loot. Now, you look through drawers and shit to find ammo. That demo is in the actual game, but it's like a VCR tape. And so they do several points of time where you'll go and you'll have a VCR and you'll watch it and you'll play through it. And then you'll go back through the actual game in the same area. It's like, oh, well, because you've been through this area in the VCR, you'll know what you'll need to hide or you'll need to pick this thing up or something that happens in the tape, which I thought was a cool mechanic. The actual game, it feels like Resident Evil in first person, but then you took the whole aesthetic, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre part, or the part where you're down, arms getting chainsawed off, and you just put it back on. And that crazy bitch Mia, that doesn't feel like Resident Evil. And I know they were trying to get away from it. They're trying to get away from Raccoon City, but I think that turned off a lot of people too.
No, I don't mind the first person stuff, but when you actually get away from the whole storyline of Umbrella unleashed this thing, they're selling it to people for their own unleashments. It's just no. That's not what Resident Evil is about. It's like you got to actually go with the actual storylines here, and it branches off in different places.
There's bits of that toward the end, and I don't want to spoil too much of 7 since you haven't played it. But
I'm probably never going to.
You're never going to. You go to refuse. But there's bits of that. The hillbillies, they get a hold of some virus or whatever that's crashed into the Louisiana swamp, wherever it is. They get a hold of it, and so then they become, I forgot what the virus is called, but they're like essentially immortal. So they like poke out their own eyeballs and all of their shit. But I liked it. It just it's one of the weaker in the main series, which is kind of shitty because this is also your reboot essentially.
I thought the Outbreak series was good. I wish they could have continued that more.
I would have took that over Project Resistance any day of the week.
Yeah, I probably would have too.
Yeah.
Or Operation Raccoon City, because that was just a shit show.
I have heard that is conflicting things about that one.
Me and Jason tried to play Operation Raccoon City. It was shitballs, man.
It was bad. I played all the way through it. I don't know why. I guess because I was like, I paid full price for it, and I was like, I better fucking finish this game.
What about the one where you play as Hunk going through all the levels, just killing zombies?
Umbrella, was it Umbrella Corps?
Yeah.
It's supposed to be even worse. It's like they decided that they were going to make this multiplayer component, which, I mean, Resident Evil 5 and Revelations and 6 had it in there, and it was core to the experience, but they were going to just half-ass it. They just give it to a Western studio, here you go, and then it ends up being so bad, they don't even want to say Resident Evil on the title. It's just want to say Umbrella Corps, and you have to know what Umbrella is.
It's for the
Resident Evil
fans
know.
It's one of those people who like to take it in the balls.
I think it was supposed to be that training facility in Code Veronica. Not sure.
So anyway, let's see. I heard that Chris is supposed to either something big is supposed to happen with Chris, or Chris does something, and then for a few months hallucinations. So that's how and it's supposed to be like a witch character that chases you. So you don't know if it's like a real actual witch or is it a ghost? It's got some it's definitely got some Resident Evil 4 vibes to it with the castle and the village, but that actually goes back more to I don't know if you remember this, Eddie. Resident Evil 3.5 was a game that never came out, and it had Leon in it, and he's going to the village and stuff, and there's ghosts and shit
I've
there.
seen a little preview thing. They were doing a demo of him walking through a dark hallway in like a suit of armor or something. And it was out and it vanishes or whatever.
It wasn't over the shoulder. It was somewhere between the tank control ones and the over the shoulder one. But it was like fixed. I don't know if it has fixed camera angles or what.
I must say, I forget. I remember the video of it where it was like, you could tell it's like, this is where we're going. And then it kind of like, because they ended up like just dunking all of it at some point. But you could tell it was like, the idea was there.
I thought that game would have been fun to play.
Yeah.
Yeah, you fighting ghosts instead of, mind control parasite zombie things. It would have been interesting.
Yeah, it's just
but,
we'll have to see.
Wesker can't control that, so they went with the Plaga things and put it in Resident Evil 5 later.
I mean, I like the Los Plagas a lot.
They're easy to kill.
They ought to bring it back in some sort of form. We'll have to see, but I'm excited for this. I'll probably get this day one, but Ethan needs to be, and I think they're going to do it because if you're going to bring him, there's a point in the game where you actually see Ethan's face, or you see him at a perspective where he's like a picture taken him. I can't remember exactly what it is, but even then they blocked it out, so they didn't want to show you Ethan's face because he's literally supposed to be the player insert. And so they need to flesh him out as a character. And I heard Mia's supposed to be in Resident Evil 8. Mia's it's his girlfriend or whatever. That's that crazy bitch that tries to kill you. I thought I killed her. I can't remember. I thought she was dead. But
you imagine the whole thing.
It was a hallucination.
Maybe it's like at that point, it's like I guess they could really do whatever they wanted to.
As long
do you
as
think
they don't
that would have done
the,
better? Do you think it would have been people would have liked 7 better if it hadn't been one of the main games? Like if it would have been an offshoot game?
Maybe. I don't know.
They had to go with some sort of new direction after 6. You can't go more exploding than
No,
6.
yeah, I mean, after 6, it's like the Fast and Furious. How much over the top can you got to do something to bring it back down?
Yeah.
So
bring it back down. Let's see. I don't really know how, other than to make it more survival and less action.
Well, that's what they definitely did with remake, and they definitely there's huge parts of Outlast which I've never played, but there's you're hiding from the Big Daddy. It's kind of like Mr. X was in Resident Evil 2. The daddy chases you around in the main part of the house, and then but never to a point where Mr. X or the Big Daddy are they even remotely as scary as the alien was in Alien Isolation. And I think we'll come back to that when we're talking about Nemesis when we get to it. But
God.
yeah, I'm pretty hyped for this. I'll get it, Eddie, and then I'll just Steam share that shit to you. And so if you play it if you want, don't play it if you want. Just with 7.
I'll try it.
Yeah.
It looked, from the couple of pictures I saw, it looked promising, but it looks suspiciously like a continuation of actual 4. Like somebody else gets infected with the Plaga and carries on the Illuminados. I saw a guy in a cloak. As one
are you talking about Resident Evil 3.5? Is that what you're talking about?
No, I'm talking about
it could be the merchant.
The merchant.
The merchant, man. He's like, you left me here. Now I got to take over. Like, maybe that's his backstory.
Oh, no.
Clearly, he had red eyes, but he was not bothered by any of that other shit going on.
I just saw a picture of a guy in a cloak thing, and it's talking about Resident Evil 8 being suspiciously looking like 4, and I was like, oh no, maybe it's a continuation.
Yeah. So we'll see. I'll play through 7 on a harder difficulty before the end because I need to revamp. Because if this got characters survived, I thought I killed. I mean, maybe I fucked up somewhere.
It's like maybe you went too easy on them.
Maybe you chose the wrong ending.
There was a choice to be made about halfway through the game. You could go with Mia, or you can go with that hillbilly princess girl who's fine as fuck. And I'm definitely with the hillbilly princess.
Zoe?
I think Zoe was her name, because Mia was a crazy bitch. Even looking at her at the VCR at the beginning was like, man, this is some ugly bitch. She's fucking nuts.
It's like, why am I hunting for her?
I'm still kind of burnt that never came out for Oculus as far as the VR. The VR was only for PlayStation. I mean, that's bullshit, but whatever. Now you don't even care about VR. I bet you this one won't even use the VR at all. So, all right. So another big leak, and this was only a couple of days ago, is that they've literally have a brand new studio to remake Resident Evil 4. And I don't know any hardcore fan at all who even wants this to happen. And so I've already bitched about it a lot. So let's hear you guys bitch about it.
I played a lot of 4. I played it, I don't know, as much as the others. I probably didn't play it as much as any of the Silent Hill games, but I played it quite a bit. I even did the handgun knife run through just because I saw it and I was like, yeah, this looks fun. It took me a long time to do it. Very long.
The PlayStation 2 one, so what you played?
Yeah, PlayStation 2. Because I didn't have a GameCube. Anyway, it was fun. It was really fun fighting Krauser with a knife because, he's the easiest boss in the game besides the lake monster throwing the harpoons at it. Well, he could be hard at times, but Krauser just back him into a corner and just knife him to death. But it was fun. It was a fun game. I liked looking for all the treasures, getting all the secret stuff. But the mercenaries, that was just rough. Leon was, he didn't have anything. It took me forever to get that hand cannon.
I never played the mercenary one.
Doing it. Krauser was the easiest one to get all think S rank with everything, because he had an arrow, bow and arrow. It was a one shot for most things, and he had his sword blade. You build up the charge and just blade everything, and you get all those giant dudes in one hit.
So he was like, what was it? Tropical Shiva and Wesker in one character.
Yeah, Wesker was
Basically.
there. Wesker was the playable character there. He had Magnum.
Of course he did.
Yeah, he was the second easiest guy to play. Then there was the mercenary hunk guy, and then there was Leon. I'm not sure if Ada was there.
I can't remember. I remember playing Mercenaries on GameCube, and that was the last time I played. I did it to unlock the hand cannon, and by the time you unlock it, you don't even care anymore because you're like, I'm done with this game. Like, you know, just like it's neat and it kills everything in basically one hit. But after going through all that in Mercenaries, you're like, I don't want to play through the story anymore.
Do a hand cannon run through. Do a hand cannon run through. I did once.
Yeah, I did too. It's kind of, you know, just something to do. But it's like I said, by the time you get done, you're kind of, yeah. It's neat to have it, but it's like, what's the point?
One hit boss kill.
Yeah.
It's almost like for those things, getting it unlocked is the actual treasure as opposed to actually using it.
The PRL 412, I think that's the name of it. That was fun. You charge it up full blast. It was a one hit boss kill. But you unlocked it after you beat the game for PS2.
Yeah, the PS2 I don't think was as graphically as good as the GameCube, but they add a lot more toys to it. And so
I think that's when they added separate ways, wasn't it? Which one?
Yeah.
Because Assignment Ada was already in GameCube, and in separate ways, I think they added in the PlayStation 2 version and later on.
Yeah.
Which that was neat because it was like it kind of like, you know, how things ended up in certain places. It was a neat little add-on. Yeah, I played Resident Evil 4. I think I've bought that game so many times on multiple consoles. I mean, I've even got it on the Switch. As far as it needing a remake, there's other games that you could remake. Remake 1 over again. I'd rather see like an 8 come out and a 9. But if you're destined to do remakes, remake Code Veronica. Remake 1 again for, you know, an updated style if you want to. But 4 is just
Survivor.
Remake Survivor. Do something like that. You know, do something totally, especially if you're still going to be working on your main games and not taking away from those. It's like 4 is update the control scheme. If you really want to do something to 4, update the control scheme to like Revelations control scheme or Revelations 2, and you're good to go. That's all you need to do.
Make
there's
the
no
knife
point in redoing
stronger.
The knife stronger.
Yeah, because that's mostly what I was using. Just I had to conserve ammo because I kept running out. When I first played through it, so I just used a knife and, you know, did suplexes and kicks and punches and stuff.
It's like it doesn't need to be made, but they're going to do it anyway. I'll still get it. But
when I heard that they had picked, because a lot of people were like, remake Code Veronica, and then it's like it came out where they're really working on 4. There was no surprise they were working on 4 because it's like the biggest one they've ever had. Probably it's probably
Game of the Year 2005.
Now for sales, I think it's 5 is the biggest one.
Yeah, I was about to say I think 5 had bigger sales, but as far as like the general thing is like 4 is kind of considered the best one ever.
Yeah.
Maybe you could argue 2 back in the day, but 4's generally got it.
5 had actual multiplayer.
Yeah. But
other than
single player.
Other than Outbreak series, 5 had, you know, actual somewhat decent multiplayer. You know, you could play with a friend. You can play with friends in Mercenaries.
Yeah, and that's where I think a lot of the replay value comes from. Even if 4 is probably a better game from a campaign perspective.
From a single player perspective. Because 5 single player is broken as shit. 6 single player is basically unplayable. I mean, it's just.
Oh, I've done 6 single player.
Well, he's talking about You're talking about the new one though.
The new one, if you play Xbox One single player Resident Evil 6, there is a part that's virtually undoable by yourself because of the frame rate going to 60 frames per second, which makes the Uber Stank move too fast for your counterpart to open the doors in the Jake and Sherry campaign. It's virtually undoable, like with your, with that setup, because he's moving faster and the other AI does not go to the door until you make it, so you have to alternate controlling back and forth, and you do not have enough time at 60 frames a second to do it, so it's virtually just broken for single player. It's the part that's in Jake and Sherry's campaign where
it's be early.
You have to. It's early on. It's when you're in the caves and he's chasing you, and you have to have one person open the door, and then the other person runs through and opens up the next door, and the other person opens.
Yep.
It's like the chain reaction. Well, see, since the AI is so slow and you have to alternate, as soon as you get done with one, you have to control the other person to go to the next one, and the next person to go to the next one. Since he's moving so fast, the AI is not fast enough it wastes too much time going to it, to the point where you, just like in Resident Evil 4 on Xbox One, they move faster. So if you're off of your time on like how fast they come up on you, there's totally a difference in that 60 frames a second to 30 frames. So it's almost like everybody's moving like almost 2 times the speed they were, which isn't noticeable if you've never noticed it, but in timed events like that on 4, and there's a couple of times on 5 where it's harder on the Xbox One because of the same thing. Like it's doable, but you can totally tell everything's moving a lot more rapid.
You know, I keep hearing here what links it all together. Xbox. They're like, fuck Xbox. They don't care. Leroy makes the port.
It's probably the same on the PS4 also, but I've only played it on the Xbox One.
Yeah.
So but I imagine it's probably the same. Now on the Switch version, it's not near as bad, but that's not the same port that the Switch got that the Xbox One had. They didn't upscale all the stuff. The Switch version to me is basically the same as the 360 HD version, where like the cutscenes are not upscaled, and it's not running at a true 60 frames per second all the time. So everybody's still got that, like, because the Krauser fight, the cinematic fight, when you got to do your button commands,
I hated that part.
It's a lot harder on the Xbox One version because of the timing at 60 frames a second is like, even the videos you can tell are like sped up a little bit.
I could play through Resident Evil 4 mostly and get very few deaths. Like every once in a while I die from, not paying attention to something. But that Krauser fight, the QTE thing, I got the most deaths from on PlayStation 4. I was just terrible at trying to get through all that.
Oh, yeah. And it's like it's random, but it's going to be 1 or 2 button combinations. But when you're just really trying to get it, and, I think I died the most from that. It's kind of like on 6 where most of your deaths would be the one-time deaths of like something you didn't realize was triggering a scene, like falling into that, what was that, blender or something one time. And it's like a one-time death, like, well, I guess I won't do that again. But it's kind of like, it just adds up to your death total.
Yeah, it looked cool.
Yeah.
You fall into the blender with the weird, what's it thing, the rubber guy that spits stuff out at you. And he breaks into pieces. Yeah,
I forget its name.
Yeah.
But I mean, granted, if Resident Evil 4 remake comes out, I'll buy it day one because I liked Resident Evil 4. I don't see there's other things. I'd rather see them work more on 9 since apparently 8 is done. But it's one of those, if you're going to keep chopping them out, sure, why not? I think we should, not expect too much of it, though.
Yeah.
I would hope they make the bosses look cooler.
Well, that would be a given.
And the lake monster, sure. That was pretty interesting.
It was really cool the first time you fight the lake monster. And then after that, though, it kind of takes a lot of the suspense out because you figure out, like, the little, the tricks. But first time fighting, it was really cool, though.
How about you go to the dock and you just keep shooting in the water and he eats you?
Yeah, that was neat.
Funny.
Just like the first time you do that, you're just like, oh, holy crap. Like,
Yeah, you're trying to get to the fish, and then all of a sudden he eats you.
This is what I'm worried about. When they did the English translation for 4, they did it different from the Japanese. So on Resident Evil 4, Leon's like this freaking campy, cringy, like asshole. That's the way I would describe him.
He's an action star, man.
Yeah. And then and it's different than Leon is in Resident Evil 6 or even 2, where he's just so wooden, so dead serious, and he's like almost exactly like Chris. They had to make Chris a drunk to differentiate between the two. But I'm worried that they would lose that, because that camp and that cringe is a huge part of that game, especially with him and like talking with the little bitty guy, the little midget guy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's like totally like it's ridiculous, but sometimes that camp is kind of what gives it charm.
Oh,
it adds to it.
I'm only 30 years old.
Oh God.
Yeah.
I'm gonna start quoting it.
Well, it's kind of like in Resident Evil 5. There's some campy shit in Resident Evil 5, like the simultaneous jumping through the door that's closing. It's campy. It's awesome campy, but it's campy. I mean, and it adds to it. It gives it a little bit of character.
Are you talking about Boulder?
That boulder, yeah. I mean, like it's like he's punching a boulder. It's like, dude, it's like
Chris
it's just
Boulder punching Redfield. X square. Turn here. Turn there. X. Oh!
And meanwhile, Shiva's spending 40 hours fucking dangling on a platform. I'm like, I'm tired of pressing A button. Come get me.
She just dangling there. It's like, save me, get your ass up.
And then Wesker's there laughing, spinning his arm around. Yeah.
Another thing I'm worried about in Resident Evil 4 is, that's where all of your suplexes and hurricanranas and freaking kung fu kicks come from. You shoot a zombie in the toe, and then you start doing some wrestling moves on their ass.
That's what I would do.
Yeah, that shit better be in there in some sort of form, because even with the new gameplay, if they make it more like Resident Evil 2, where, okay, we've got to make the Lost Pragus a threat or whatever, they're not understanding what the fuck Resident Evil 4 was.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's like literally he's an action star at that point. And I get that people are like, that seemed to be where the departure was between Resident Evil 3 had a lot of action in it, but, more than 2. But like 4 really was over the top. Like, this is more of an action game. Like, it's suspenseful, but like, it's a lot more gunplay.
Yeah.
A lot of ammo laying around. You could get around and do.
Yeah, you had actual ammo drops. That's when this whole thing started.
Yeah.
And of course, that first part where you get the stuff with the little, you going in and out of the houses and stuff. When you get actually into the village, and that's the first time Resident Evil where it's like, well, what the fuck do I do? Because you're usually used to just posting up and then shooting some guys, but they're coming in through windows and doors, and you have to move around. You're climbing ladders, and it's like a whole little battle arena.
Jumping out of windows and freaking running like hell. It's like
figure it out. When you do it again, you're like, okay, I'm going to go here and get all this stuff, and then you run to all the different houses and grab everything, and you just find a place to hold up and start shooting them out, blowing them up with the grenades. And you just hold out till the bell rings.
Yeah,
but you want to get them chainsaw guys. There were 2 of them. One had a ruby, and the other one had actual cash. The one that had the ruby, you went to him before you triggered everybody else, because otherwise he doesn't show up.
But the dynamic was when you're first there, you don't know all that shit. So more than likely, you're running from those chainsaw guys until you can learn to overtake them later on. I love games like that kind of have an involved pace to them. And that's one of the reasons that Resident Evil 4 is so damn good. It's a different way to play it. And then you get up doing stupid shit where they're throwing dynamite and shit. Oh, he's throwing dynamite. Let me climb up this ladder and be invincible. And all this other kind of crap
you just shoot him enough times with the handgun to distract him, and the dynamite blows him up.
Or shoot the dynamite out of the air. I remember you could do that, right?
Yep.
Definitely the axes.
Yeah, you can do that. You can also do that with the fire breathing guys, and they burn themselves out. Unless they had, Plaga in them, then the Plaga would pop out and you just toss a flash grenade.
Yeah.
I actually figured that out. You can toss some flash grenades, kills them instantly. You didn't have to sit there and shoot them a whole bunch.
Just like any kind of Plagueis thing, you just throw a flash grenade, and that carried on to 5 too.
Yep.
This game is due out in 2022, so I would say probably January and February 2022. Both Resident Evil 8 and Remake are going to be cross-generation, so they'll be on PlayStation 5 and Series X, but they'll also be on PC and PS4 and Xbox One. I mean, the Resident Evil engine works so damn good on PC. I can't see why would you just not get it on PC? Freaking uncapped frame rates, playing in Ultra and all that other shit. The only hitch I've ever had was in Resident Evil 2, like in your B routes where Mr. X is walking through the main lobby and with zombies there, the game kind of freaks out a little bit there. I think it's trying to read where Mr. X is supposed to go. But remember that there's never been no hitches on the PC version, so it's like, I mean, fuck the Xbox One because they're just going to shit on it anyway. Just get the shit on PC and be done. They had to patch Resident Evil 3 on Xbox X, the big one, because they were trying to do 4K and the game couldn't. I mean, the system couldn't really handle it, and so your frame rate was all over the way. They had to drop it down under 4K to get it to work. But I mean, we'll have to wait. It's all speculation right now. We'll see what they do. But when we get and start talking about 3 in a second, thinking about all the shit they cut,
God.
Would they be cutting mercenaries in this thing? Because if you cut mercenaries in Resident Evil 4,
3 is where mercenaries started.
Yeah, but the real core of it is what we think of mercenaries started with 4. I would say that 3 was more of the battle mode that was in Part 2. Do you remember that? The old Part 2. Yeah.
Where you just race to a certain place or whatever.
Now, before we get to talking about the 3 remake, Eddie, I'm going to ask you some questions about that. Now, in the battle mode for 2, you start like in the lab and you like work your way back out to the police station. Now, is that how the third one was too? I don't remember.
In the third one, you picked one of the mercenary characters, and it said you had a bomb in you, and to get it removed, you had to go to like I think the police station or something, but you had to actually fight your way there. And depending on how well you did, you get a certain number of dollars and spend them at the store or whatever and buy weapon upgrades for in-game.
Okay. And so you started off at the what was it, the trash compactor or whatever it was, the end of Resident Evil 3?
No, there was no way to get back. You started to think at the actual train. Okay. You know where the train is, where before you take off and everything?
Yeah.
I think that's where you started, somewhere near there, and you just had to fight your way through. I had to have to go back again.
Yeah, it's been a long time. See. The last one of those I played was actually 0, because 0 has that you go back. I think you start at the end, and you have to make your way back to the beginning, and you like go through. There's a lot of optional rooms. You don't have to, but you want to collect the little purple leeches or whatever. And if you get a certain amount, they'll give you a costume. And so, in order to get all the leeches, would be a pretty rough place, since they got the gorillas and all that other shit in there trying to kill you all the time. That's something that Resident Evil 2, and I think we'll talk about 3 when we get to it. That the remakes that's seriously missing, because the stuff they added into 2 as far as DLC or the 4th Survivor or the 3 Runaways or whatever, those modes sucked. I played 1 and it was god awful terrible. And if they cut
mercenaries, tofu.
Yeah.
Oh.
It doesn't work the same way. I think there's various waves or something that come after you, and you get different type of weapons as tofu. Mercenaries come back, and this might be the chance that we get mercenaries to come back, and it's some kind of new form, but it still needs to be time based and kill a bazillion monsters.
Certainly was 3.
Yeah, so for loadouts and stuff, all that stuff needs to be in there. So let's talk about Resident Evil 3 Remake. This right here is your Metacritic score. So it's a 5.3 on PC. This is the user score, not the critical score.
And out of 6.
That's out of 10, sir. And so let me look at
hurting.
So it's a 6.3 on PC.
I'm hurting.
A 5.9 on Xbox. Now the Metacritic is like in the 80s. It's okay. But so let's talk. I'm going to go through some of these things real fast, and we'll get your opinion of whether you agree on it, Chad. Let's see. This game has no puzzles, no memorable places like the clock tower, park, the cemetery. Apparently, that's all cut, Eddie.
Yep. It got cut.
Some of these guys
only get mention of the clock tower. You don't visit
it's in a
cemetery.
No. It's in the
It's in the battle where he's running sideways on the walls, right? He climbs up it at the boss battle.
He climbs up it at the boss battle, and there's like a magazine somewhere, but that's pretty much about it.
All right, no crows, no spiders, no giant worm.
Actually, there are spiders, and they're in the power
spiders,
station.
Right? Okay.
But they put eggs in you, and you got to get a green herb to cough them up. I was looking up what they did and did not put in.
This guy says
no worms and no crows, though.
Yeah. We play it for 2 things, Nemesis and Raccoon City. He expected much more from Nemesis. He's scripted. And we'll talk more about that when we get to expectations. But he was scripted in the original Resident Evil 3. But what people wanted was simply Mr. X, except for the whole game. That's my interpretation of what people were looking for. But he was very scripted in the original one, and there were certain areas where you're coming through where he had a percentage chance of showing up. It's like, if I get through, he's going to show up in these 2 areas, and I just need to run through them and get to the next thing.
No, if he showed up in one area, he wouldn't show up in the other. That was the thing. Or at least that's what my interpretation was when I originally was playing it. I was looking up stuff about him and where to not find him and whatever.
Yeah.
He had a chance to show up at one place but not another. And you had different routes you can go through and do different things. And you can fight him easier and get items from him easier.
Yeah, apparently the item upgrades aren't as hot. We'll talk. Did you kill him, any, Chad, or did you just let him?
I went after him. Well, here's the thing. At the beginning of the game, like it's basically broke down kind of in 3 sections, kind of like Resident Evil 2 Remake was. But the Raccoon City section is not that long. The city's it's not that big, but it's fun to. I mean, there's stores you can go into and get items and whatever. Like, there's like a toy store. It has like something in it. But when he first shows up, like if you take him down real quick, and when he goes down, he ain't down forever. It's like he'll regenerate and come back.
Yeah.
But you want to take him down like a grenade will do it every time. You throw a grenade at him, and he'll like go down to one knee, just like Mr. X, and like a chest will pop out, like an attaché case or whatever. Like the first one, I think you get like I think the first time you beat him, you get like a silencer or something. There's like 2 upgrades that you get. There's 3 upgrades you get for the standard gun, which you get a different gun. It's almost identical later on that has none of the upgrades on it. So it's kind of like, what's the freaking point?
Yeah.
It's just basically you start with a Glock 17, which is a semi-auto. And you get a scope for it, not a scope, but a red dot. Extended magazine and a silencer, and all that does is I'm sure it beefs up on the paper damage, it probably beefs it up a little bit. And then about halfway through the game, you get a Glock 18, which is non-upgraded, but it has like a big clip on it and it's fully auto.
Okay. Yeah.
So, but it's kind of like
the original drops sound a lot better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Different guns, first aid spray cases, and at the very end, if you beat them and you got all the other stuff, you get an infinite ammo thing for one weapon.
Okay.
I remember that now in the original. I forgot about that.
Now back to this guy. He said he expected much more from the city, which is you were talking about. He says that first half of the original game is an intro run with cutscenes and strange gameplay mechanics. Not playable, a lot of it. He says you've pretty much had already done it if you played the demo. He says a lot of it's linear. And he says
It's
RE3,
almost that demo's like about half of it, literally.
half of the game, that big?
Not the game, but half the city.
Okay.
That demo is literally probably half of Raccoon City, if not more.
Yeah.
Like literally, it's like if you were to add another 30 minutes to it, you could be out of Raccoon City in an hour. I mean, that quick.
Yeah. It says the original RE3 is better than this. RE2 remake is better than this. Capcom, most of the money you earned on this game you received due to the success of RE2. Now that's true. That's generally how that works. That's how Diablo 3 is a thing. Diablo 3 sold 30 million copies because Diablo 2.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you think about Diablo 3?
That's an entirely different podcast, Eddie.
Okay.
We'll get to that eventually. He says the remake sucks. It's not a remake. It's a reimagination. He said if this is reimagination, then this imagination sucks.
Well, two other enemies they didn't put in were the drain demon thing, the giant fleas, and the brain suckers. Whatever
I thought the Demos was in there. Or whatever it is. I don't remember all the monsters toward the later half of the game, but I remember lots of lickers and shit.
No, in Resident Evil 3, I'm talking about the remake.
I mean, not lickers,
they did
but
put
hunters.
those in.
Yeah.
They put hunters in there, but they looked way different from, the original ones.
Yeah.
This guy's negative says it's got 2.5 hours of gameplay. Very linear, even for a shooter. Lack of content. Yeah, I understand the speedrunning part, but there's a lot of people pissed here. And now going to the world's greatest site here, the Senkaku complex. Capcom put out is like, well, what do you think about Resident Evil? They asked in Twitter, and so here you go.
This is probably not a good idea.
No,
Capcom's defense. I mean, it's like, you better really know you got something good before you put out a Twitter question like that.
Yeah, well, they've already sold it. They've shipped 2 million copies. Shipped. That don't mean
they got your money, bitch.
Yeah, they've already shipped it because of the success of Part 2. This guy says after 20 years, especially after the first Resident Evil remake. Now we'll come back and talk about when we're talking about expectations about how important that is, because it's pretty much the definitive remake of everything ever. He's very disappointed. He tried to give you because the live selection, selecting the part of how you want to go from Nemesis, whether you want to fight him or run, they took that out of the game.
Yeah, that's one of the main things they took, the decision thing. I thought that was cool.
It's like, here's a list of the things to cut. So you cut the clock tower. Yeah. You cut out a lot of the streets. You cut Jill on the Raccoon City.
Yeah, she's supposed to visit it, and every time you do a replay and visit it, everything's switched around because Chief Irons is there, and he's paranoid and he's hiding ammo. That was the explanation.
Okay, and then
yeah, that's why the passwords were always different.
The park's been cut. The cemetery's cut. So if you cut that, you cut the worm, that was called the Gravedigger, right? Okay.
Yeah, the Gravedigger. That was one of the worms, though. That was the worm boss. There was another one where you fought worms underground. You had to get a ladder there quickly to get out of there.
Chad, it keeps talking about puzzles being cut. I mean, is it?
Yeah.
What's all in there?
The puzzles.
There's very few.
Okay.
When you get back to the a lot of the safes in the game are I'm trying to think. Let's see. There's one in Raccoon City that's a safe that's easy to get, so that's one puzzle technically. As far as puzzles to actually progress the game, I got to do. I can only think of about two.
Mixing this stuff.
There's one for mixing the stuff, and I'm trying to think if there was another one. Like when you go to when you go back into RPD, which you're not even in there as Jill, you're in there as Carlos. When you go back in there as that, it's like all the stuff is pretty much about the same. Like all the safes and everything.
Yeah.
Like all the safes have the same thing. I was trying to find a thing.
They have the same code?
Yeah, they have the same code. Yeah, it's CAP and DCM, just like in Resident Evil 2 Remake. They have the same
Street Fighter
codes.
Zero, if you went to the sewers. And, yeah.
Yeah, and which I guess was like, well, it's in the same universe. Like you find Brad and all that, so it made sense that they were the same. But, God, I was trying to find it because I had a picture thing of one of the things I was working on it. Do you remember the one they did for Resident Evil 2 Remake when you were going back through and playing through it over and over again? It was like the little cheat sheet.
Yeah, they have that.
It's like there's one for that, and I'll have to send it to you because it's like drastically smaller.
It's just like 5 things.
It's like 3 or 4 things. Like it's like insane. I should have sent it to you either way. But yeah, I mean, there's not a lot of puzzles in it. The game is like, if you casually go through it, and I casually went through it, like just kind of like, I mean, I probably spent like, I would play for about an hour, and I played it for about 3 or 4 days. I mean, it's easily under 5 hours, pretty much, if you're just like casually going through it and not trying to do anything in effect. You could do it under 5 hours.
Here's the question. Well, before I get to that, let's go back to some more shit's cut. I've got some talking about the time. He says the game is too short. It should have a huge DLC to make up for it. But guess what? They're not going to do any DLC. They've already announced it. All the DLC is going for Resistance. Of course, what he says, no one cares about Resistance, which is the goddamn honest truth.
I have yet to even play it. I downloaded it because it was with the game. Like, and it does it as a separate download, for Steam.
Yeah. It has a separate Metacritic and everything, I believe.
Yeah.
This person here says introduce a free Mercenaries mode DLC. It's not coming. Yeah. Mercenaries is cut. That's probably the biggest. I would think the cut you could do would be the after part of the game.
That is basically what started the whole Mercenaries thing. That was the start of it right there. Resident Evil 3.
Yeah. This guy says roses are red, violets are blue. For fuck's sake. Remake Code Veronica. And Dino Crisis 2. I think both of these games would be what the fans would want, and this is Alpha Omega Sin, who's a popular person. The fans would want Code Veronica and Dino Crisis over Resident Evil 4. I'm almost positive.
I have yet to play actual Dino Crisis.
Yeah.
But, one of the Jurassic Park guys said it is Resident Evil with dinosaurs.
That's literally what it is.
Yeah.
There was a demo on Resident Evil 3, the disc, if memory serves, of Dino Crisis 1, I think. I
did not be able to get that one.
I rented it.
Bought Resident Evil 3 new at the time. I saved up money to get it, but it didn't come with that, I don't think.
What he's trying to humbly say, Chad, is in your flea market adventures, if you run across Dino Crisis, grab one for him.
No, I don't do that.
We got you, Eddie.
I need to find it myself. That's the whole beauty. Find it.
I don't understand that, Eddie. I don't understand the logic. Just let him get it. Just like that obscure game. I worked my ass off to get you that obscure game. Okay, I'm glad you played through it. Real action one.
I Obscure 2. Enjoy that. That one was fun. Obscure 2 was okay and everything, but the first one was pretty fun. Oh, Patrick's crying.
This one says you ruined everything.
Yeah, basically. You cut a lot of the good stuff out, seems like.
And this is where people was like, well, if you remake 4, don't cut 30 hours and make it a 9-hour game.
And that's the thing. It's like, that's kind of what,
Mercenaries.
I didn't really, I downloaded it the day it came out, and I didn't play it for about a day or so. So I'd already kind of heard, like, people being like, hey, it's really short. And they were like, oh, they reused a lot of the Resident Evil 2 stuff. But I was like, well, Resident Evil 3 original wasn't the longest game, and it reused a lot of Resident Evil 2 backgrounds. So I was like, well, that kind of makes sense. And I guess because I'd already kind of heard people were kind of shitting on it, that it didn't really get my expectations were tamed. Because I was like, okay, if people are shitting on it, it's only 5 hours long. I'm not going to be shocked when I come in here and beat it, in a few playthroughs and be, annoyed by it. I could see in a previous life that probably would have bothered me, but now it's like, well, I kind of already knew it coming in. If it'd been like day one, and I'm like, I want to sit down and play this game, and no spoilers, no nothing, no internet contact, I would probably have been pissed.
You would have been one of these guys writing these messages.
Exactly. It'd be like, what the fuck? I'm done. It's like 4 or 5 hours. I mean, like it's pretty short. I will say this though, it's short but sweet. It's a fun 5-hour game. It could have been downloadable content, but whatever. It's it is what it is.
Wasn't Resident Evil 3 originally supposed to be a side game? They just said Resident Evil 3 and Code Veronica.
I'm gonna stop and do a cut on the video, but before I go, is like, let me say this. Okay, so the original Resident Evil 3 was short. Okay, that was one of its faults compared to Resident Evil 2. If you're doing a remake, why don't you go back and look at one of the main faults? I mean, just leave it there.
Why would you make it shorter?
Yeah.